Public comment period for the DEIS began on November 19th. It is scheduled to conclude at 3 p.m. on Friday, December 19th. A note about written comments. There have been requests that the town board accept comments by email. However, hard copies are required by the town clerk, and it is unworkable if copies come in both by email and hard copies later. So we ask that you please submit hard copies. If a comment comes in on Monday morning after the 3 p.m. Friday deadline, we have the discretion to accept it for the record, but please do your best to meet the December 19th deadline. One additional scheduling item. Next Thursday, December 11th, the planning board will hold a public hearing on the site plan approval. Although a hearing is not required, the planning board felt it was useful to continue our open process and afford everyone a further opportunity to be heard. Now for tonight's public hearing, everyone wishing to speak, make sure that you're signed in, if you haven't already. Please note that there's a special sign-in sheet for elected officials, another one for consultants, and also there's separate sign-in sheets for Tuxedo residents and non-residents. Here's the format that we're going to be using. First, the applicant will give a presentation on the project. Next is a courtesy. We will allow any elected officials who are here to make a comment. After the elected officials, the consultant will provide their comments. Then we will start the public comments, beginning with the Tuxedo residents, followed by non-residents, which will be limited to 3 minutes per speaker. We'll ask that you please respect the 3-minute time limit so that everyone can be heard. Once again, John Kilduff will be the gatekeeper, calling people up in order to present their comments. Thank you, John. Then we received requests to continue and extend tonight's public hearing to another date. As previously noted, the board will make a decision on that request after the hearing tonight. So once again, thanks to everyone, and we look forward to listening to your comments. Now I'll turn the microphone over to Don.
As the supervisor noted, there's a few things going on at the same time. A large project like this needs multiple approvals from multiple agencies and also has an environmental review, but only a single environmental review to be used by all the agencies. We're doing two things tonight. One is that part of that environmental review process. There's been a draft impact statement filed. It's been posted on our website. It's been available at the town hall and the library for people to look at. That document was intended to cover all the items in the scope that we developed as a result of prior hearings, which probably most of you participated in. And the document was developed, and it was developed so that you could comment on it and indicate any issues or problems that you see with that, so that there could be a final impact statement prepared. The environmental review process has to be, fully done and completed before any of the agencies can give an approval to the project. Because of the short time frame that the state agencies provided in setting up this process, at the town level, we adopted a new local law which created the gaming overlay zone. It was allowed to allow us to put the casino into the hat of the state agency while still having the time to do a full environmental impact statement as is required. So we were trying to balance those things. So at the town level, we're going to have several different approvals that will be granted. One is the special permit. There's a hearing. The hearing tonight includes the special permit. Those go to the overall zoning issues that relate to this particular project and application. That hearing is part of that process. As was noted earlier, the planning board will be holding a hearing on the site plan. They'll be looking at the more detailed issues related to the specific plans for this application. The Architectural Review Board is also making an independent review of the architectural elements of this in their own process. So tonight, the hearing is to cover two purposes. One is any comments you may have on the special permit, which is ultimately the town board approval that has to be given before the planning board and architectural review board, and can't be given until we know that there's been an award by the state of the gaming license. And by the way, the announcement is that the location board will be announcing its picks on December 17th. So some of the suspense will be relieved at that point in time. The main purpose, of course, tonight is for the environmental review. Our review of this document to make comments regarding the environmental issues that haven't been addressed fully or completely, so that you can make that notation, and then the applicant can be following up to respond to all of those questions. And part of this process, our town consultants will be making comments as well as part of their review. So again, tonight, we want to be identifying issues, so it's not so much that you need to stand up and be counted, but we want to know specifically what your concerns and issues are. If they've been identified, we don't want to take away from your time, but you don't need to repeat those of others, and you can say, I agree with such and such comments, it'll save us all time. But the time you have will be yours to use as you see fit. So that's the essential game plan, and hopefully an outline of the things that are happening on a legal basis tonight, and we'll move forward in our presentation.
Okay, Mike, so this will be bring the applicant. Okay, so the applicant's consultant come down to give the presentation.
Come on, dude, you can text on the way home.
Good evening. My name is Kevin Jones. I'm General Counsel for Genty, and on behalf of Genty and RW Orange County LLC, which is the gaming affiliate that has submitted a application to the state gaming facility location board, I'd like to thank you all for coming out. We appreciate your comments, and as you've seen in our DEIS, we are working diligently to pursue the study and analysis of the comments that we received so that we can fully address the matters in connection with our proposed development. That being said, I'm just going to introduce Larry Kozeski, who's going to walk you through that document called the DEIS and explain how it's structured and what's included in it, so that when you go back to the town's website and you pull it up there, you can have some photos with it. Larry?
Thanks, Kevin. Good evening. Just need 1 second to put the presentation up on the screen. Board members, you may wish to shield your eyes. Sure. T-E-S-E-S-K-Y. Once again, my name is Larry Kozeski. I'm the Senior Vice President with the consulting firm Lewis Berkshire Group. We're one of the consulting firms hired by RW Orange County LLC to prepare the draft environmental impact statement, which is the subject of this meeting tonight. So as Kevin explained, I plan to walk you through. This outline is basically the abbreviated table of contents of the draft environmental impact statement. So these are the items that I'll cover here in the next 10 minutes. I don't plan on getting into a lot of detail, just to give you the highlights to perhaps help your review or find particular things you want to find in the document. Is there a way we can dim the lights? Is there a way we can dim the lights a little, please?
The only, what, for some reason my house lights aren't working, but
Okay.
if we kill those, it's gonna be dark.
Okay, we can manage. Most of this is text, there's very few figures here, so I think we can manage. Thank you. The project site, as many of you probably know, is located in the northwest corner of the town of Castillo. It straddles Route 17. It's popularly known as the Renfair property. It comprises about 240 acres. The project description, the proposed project is one of the alternatives evaluated in the DEIS, and it is basically what the applicant wants to accomplish. So the project description is listed here. It comprises these primary components: a 1,000-room Resorts World Grand Hotel, 6 to 7 stories in height, with a casino. And this is being located on the abandoned landing strip. If you're driving west on Route 17A, it's on the right side of the highway. On the other side of the highway, there would be the World's Fairgrounds, which is would be a revitalized New York Renfair site, and then the ski village on the existing Castillo Ridge Ski Center property. And the Sterling Gardens would be reestablished as part of the mix of uses that is proposed for the property. There are ancillary uses. I won't get into them in detail, but there are basically ancillary uses associated with leisure use of the property, dining, lodging, recreational uses on the property. And those are listed here and described in greater detail in the DEIS. Access and parking, key components of the proposal. There's a proposed new interchange known as Interchange 15B on I-87, the New York State Thruway. It would be located at basically where the I-87 intersects with Route 206. This is a component of the project, but it's subject to a separate environmental review under the State Environmental Quality Review Act, and it will be subject to its own environmental impact statement. However, the combined effects of the resort and the interchange are covered in Chapter 10 of the DEIS, and this is known as the cumulative impact assessment, the combined effects of the two components of this project. Parking will be planned to meet the parking needs of the property. Roughly 8,800 parking spaces, most of which would be in a parking garage. And then there would be, you may not be able to see it below the table, but 2 pedestrian bridges to facilitate access across Route 17A, as well as the elevated structures for pedestrians, bridges basically for pedestrians across 17A to take advantage of all the amenities proposed. This is just a schematic of the interchange 15B, and here we go. I-87, this is Route 106. This is a full interchange. All movements north-south would be covered here. Route 106 would convey travelers from the Thruway interchange to 15B to a new roundabout, which would replace the existing intersection where Route 17A and Route 17 intersect, and then Route 17A would then be expanded to 4 lanes to meet up with the current 4 lanes, which basically begin around here and carry up to the Renfair property. A key component of any environmental impact statement is the purpose and need. Why is the project proposed? And the project is proposed essentially to meet the requirements of the Upstate New York Gaming and Economic Development Act of 2013. And just briefly, the purposes of that act, which really are the purposes of this project, would be to create jobs, reduce unemployment in disadvantaged areas of the state, enhance the state's tourism industry, generate substantial revenue for public education and taxpayer relief. As was mentioned previously, RW Orange County submitted an application as part of the request for applications issued by the state And the proposal in that application, of course, the proposal in the DEIS generally corresponds, is required to correspond to what was in the June 30th application. Project alternatives. So what I just described is the proposed project in the DEIS. There are alternatives, though, some of which are required to be considered under the SECRA, the State Environmental Quality Review Act, and a third alternative that was a requirement of the scoping document. So these alternatives include the no-build alternative. In other words, the assumption is that the existing uses of the property would continue. There's an as-of-right alternative, which interpreting existing town zoning of the property would permit up to 49 single-family residences covering approximately 177.2 acres. Then there's the alternative architectural building design, which is essentially the same as the proposed project, just with a lower height of the spires on the hotel, reduced from over 200 feet to 172 feet. The scoping document, which is basically the foundation of the DEIS, had the 172 feet specified for comparison. So these are the three alternatives against which the proposed project is evaluated in the DEIS. So now the impact and mitigation areas. I'll go through these quickly in the interest of time. One category in the evaluation is land use, zoning, and public policy. So what this slide shows basically is a comparative summary of the alternatives. And for most of the slides, the proposed project and architectural design alternative are presented together because, again, but for the spire height, the proposed project and architectural design alternative are the same. The no-build alternative, it assumes that there would still be uses on the property. Those are the uses that currently exist. Essentially the Renaissance fair use and the ski. The as-of-right alternative would replace the existing uses with residential uses existing, consistent with the existing zoning. This alternative would not meet the economic development goals of the town comprehensive plan, which designates the property for tourism-related business uses. The proposed project and architectural design alternative basically would expand the uses on the site from the uses I described previously, and these uses would be consistent with the town comprehensive plan and gaming overlay district. Geology, soils, and
last line there about the mitigation?
Sure.
Impact.
Potential impacts on community character would be mitigated through traffic mitigation and measures to minimize visibility. Geology, soils, and topography. There would be no change in the footprint on the property, so it's assumed that the geology, soils, and topography would remain the same. However, the site, given the land disturbance that is not vegetated, it has soil erosion, and that soil erosion is something that would be a factor under the no-build alternative. The as-of-right alternative, the site development footprint would be approximately 34 acres, and there would be less excavation with the proposed project. The proposed project and architectural design alternative, there would be an additional 19 acres of development footprint, presenting a total of approximately 46 acres total footprint development. And there would be excavation of rock to accomplish the construction. Mitigation would be accomplished through adherence to soil erosion and sediment control plan. Groundwater resources. Currently, there's a lack of stormwater management on the existing uses of the property, and these reduce infiltration of water that falls to the site, rainfall, snow, etc., that inhibits infiltration from pre-development conditions. The as-of-right alternative, depending on the specifics of the residential design, could have a potential impact on groundwater similar to the proposed project. And the proposed project architectural design alternative, there would be a potential for construction period impact. There would be subsurface construction, that's the excavation that I described, dewatering of that excavation in certain places. That would be the construction period impact, and the permanent impact would be from an increase in impervious surface. The mitigation, bottom line will be here. Mitigation through such mitigation measures is minimizing construction limits, avoiding introduction of contaminants to groundwater during construction, and infiltration from water recycled for irrigation. Wetlands and surface water. Again, the stormwater management has an impact on wetlands. Soils that get eroded on the existing disturbed areas on the property cause sedimentation in nearby wetlands and waters. The as-of-right alternative, based on the analysis, we have roughly a tenth of an acre of impact on isolated wetlands. The proposed project architectural design alternative, potential fill and disturbance of 3.6 acres of wetlands. The design was changed from the June 30th application to reduce that level of wetland impact. The mitigation would include restoration of 6.1 acres of wetlands that were previously disturbed by historic uses of the property and would produce a net increase in the acreage of on-site wetlands. Vegetation and wildlife. No change from existing impact of existing site uses, although one thing to note is that there are currently more vegetative management on the property to control invasive species. The as-of-right alternative would potentially impact approximately 25 acres of natural and vegetative communities with 7 acres of tree removal. The proposed project and architectural design alternative would have potential impact on the natural and vegetative communities with mitigation and preservation of undisturbed areas and vegetation management. Stormwater management. This is a theme I think keeps repeating itself. The lack of stormwater management and treatment under the no-build alternative. It's assumed that the 15.1 acres of impervious surfaces with the as-of-right alternative would be mitigated through standard stormwater management and treatment. The proposed project and architectural design alternative would have an increase of acreage of impervious surface cover over the existing cover. The potential impacts of this would be minimized through stormwater retention and filtration, green roofs, and approximately 14 acres of permeable with surface parking, which would really go above and beyond standard stormwater management and treatment. Water supply, no bill would be no change from the existing demand. The as-of-right demand would be well within the United Water service capacity and substantially less than the proposed project. The water demand under the proposed project architectural design alternative would be less than half of the Indian Kill Reservoir safe yield of 600,000 gallons per day. The net effect of the Indian Kill Reservoir inflows would be a less than 1% because of water recycling for irrigation and reintroduction to the reservoir catchment area. In other words, the water gets drawn out, much of it gets put back in the ground for recycling and filtration, and eventually winds up back in the Indian Kill Reservoir. Wastewater. The site currently has a wastewater treatment plant in the 1960s era. As a right alternative, it's assumed that the wastewater impact would be negligible, and the continued use of the existing wastewater treatment plant, whereas the proposed project architectural design alternative proposes a wastewater reclamation facility that would treat sanitary flows to better than Class A water standards, which is essentially potable water, and we have a negligible impact on the Indian Kill and Ramapo. Energy use and infrastructure capacity. Current site uses are served by electricity only. It's assumed that the as-of-right alternative would be served only by electricity with a negligible impact on existing electric supplies. And the proposed project architectural design alternative would have a negligible impact, except also relative to the existing supply of both electricity and natural gas in the area. This has been confirmed with the providers. The plan also incorporates renewable energy up to 10%, at least 10% of the energy requirements of the use would be met through solar panels. Visual character and aesthetic resources. The no build would remain the the same as it is now, with the existing rent fair uses. As of right, it would be expected to improve over the existing visual character and aesthetic character, and would have less visual impact than either the architectural design alternative and the proposed project. Now, this is the one category where the architectural design alternative and proposed project are different, and that's because of spire height. With the architectural design alternative, there's a reduction in potential impact by a lower spire height. The colors and materials to be used in both the architectural design alternative and proposed project are basically compatible with surrounding landscape and the environment with muted color schemes. There would be potentially significant visual impacts from Katrina Court and Hogback Mountain Trail under the architectural design alternative. With the proposed project, same thing with color and materials. And higher spire height that would result in potential visual impacts from Katrina Court, Clinton Woods, Alice Trail, and Hogback Mountain Trail. Traffic, transportation, and parking. Traffic impacts from Renaissance Fair would continue. There's uncontrolled pedestrian crossings, part of the typographical area there. On Route 17A, parking many times during the Renaissance Fair events. There's parking on the shoulder of Route 17A, and in some of the intersections during the traffic use of access to the Renaissance Fair have unacceptable levels of service. And separate and apart from Renaissance Fair, they continued traffic congestion on Route 17A through the town, particularly during the peak hours of commuter traffic through the town. As of right, would have minimal traffic impacts. Some intersections would have unacceptable levels of service, and the traffic on Route 17 through the town would remain essentially unchanged. Proposed project architectural design alternative, there would be a substantial increase in volume and the continuous trips generated by the site. In other words, instead of being just peak period trips, there would be more trips in other parts of the day outside the peak period. But there are measures to minimize traffic impacts proposed. These include the 15B interchange, as I mentioned, which would in effect divert traffic, not only resort traffic, but also commuter traffic that uses Route 17A from the town and routed by the thruway via Route 106 straight onto Route 17A. There would be some Route 17A widening where needed in very localized situations, because most of 17A is already 4-lane. There would be a second entrance intersection to the site, and there would be adequate on-site parking to basically eliminate the shoulder parking that presently occurs during Run Fair events, and 2 pedestrian bridges constructed, as I mentioned previously.
What about the 2 crossroads after that roundabout you're proposing?
Yeah, hi, we're not taking questions tonight for the consultant. This is just a presentation. So
The details are
there are no questions for the consultant.
Okay, but I would like to speak with the consultant. When are we allowed to,
That I don't have to ask the town board that. I just know the rules for tonight are as I'm stating them. So please continue, sir.
And the details, this is really just a high-level summary. The details are in the document. Noise, no build, no change from existing. As of right, it's assumed there would be a minimal, really imperceptible impact from trips generated by the residences, primarily during the commuter peak periods. And stationary sources, noise would be really minor. Those are just things like somebody has a geothermal pump or something like that. Not commercial noise sources or air conditioners, let's say. Proposed project architectural design alternative. 36 total residences in the community. Clinton Woods, Laurel Ridge would be impacted by increased nighttime traffic on Route 17A. The proposal in the draft environmental impact statement is to supply building and window insulation and other treatments to dampen that noise effect. Residences in Parkland and the project vicinity would experience noise impacts, primarily in the late night hours, but with perceived relative change up to a doubling of noise levels. Very quiet. 17A. but the absolute levels would remain at roughly rural levels. Mitigation includes restriction of amphitheater events, control of snow guns, and shielding of HVAC equipment. The sound levels on 87 in East Village would increase, and this is an issue that will be brought forward to the New York State Thruway Authority as part of the 15 DEIS. Air quality, no change from existing under the no bill, no exceedances of air quality standards under the as of right, and the proposed project architectural design alternative would also meet air quality standards, although there would still be mitigation provided, shown here below, and NOx boilers and CNG fuel shelter. Community services and fiscal impact. The no-bill alternative, there would be no change as a result of this category. It's expected the as of right would have a minimal adverse impact because more residents would be increased demand for police, fire, emergency, and road maintenance, and corresponding expenditures. The proposed project and the architectural design alternative, there would be a potential impact for increasing demand for police, town court, and fire, with a negative net fiscal impact for the Tuxedo Joint Fire District. There would be emergency and road maintenance services and corresponding revenues, and these measures are going to be finalized during the FEIS, the final EIS presentation. Positive net fiscal impact for the town of Tuxedo and Orange County. Cultural resources, these are archaeological resources, historic resources, no change under the no bill. As of right, there's potential for direct adverse impact on one archaeological site on the property, where with the proposed project architectural design alternative, potential impact to any archaeological sites will be done with through mitigation, data recovery of artifacts, and this is being coordinated with government and tribal officials. Solid waste and hazardous materials, no change, no bill, residential waste generation under as of right, and the proposed project and architectural design alternative would have potential impact that's proposed to be mitigated through sustainable purchasing and recycling. Socioeconomics, I believe this is the last slide. The no change in the employment or regional economic effect of existing site uses. As of right, as I mentioned, potential for adverse effect on the local economy because putting residents on the site would displace rent fair, the Renaissance Fair, to a location likely outside the town of Tuxedo. Proposed project or architectural design alternative, there would be a substantial regional employment effect through the creation of over 4,000 permanent jobs. The project would have a substantial beneficial effect on the local and regional economy from increased disposable income, from above market wages and benefit offered to employees, and the operational expenditures associated with the resort. Most jobs would be filled by existing residents of the region, creating measurable demand for new housing, and existing business operations on the site would be enhanced and revitalized with a greater offering of entertainment options. I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, we're going to go to the elected and local officials. First up, the mayor of Tuxedo Park, Lee Newhouser. Just going to remind everybody, when you do come up, please state and spell your name. It's for the stenographer, even if it's Smith. Please spell your name. And
Thank you, John. Lily Newhouser, Lilinehuhauser. As an interested secret agency, the village of Tuxedo Park previously requested that certain items be added to the DEIS scope to be addressed by Genting. My comments will be limited to those village items that the town included in the scope. The Bald Eagle was to get a field study survey. It appears no survey was done, and there was no explanation as to why not. It is mentioned in the DEIS as presumed occurring. It is important to conduct a field survey to ensure that these birds are protected. Although not endangered since 2007, other federal laws protect them, and that if a project affects them, an eco-conservation plan may be required. Although the DEIS did a thorough identification of the watersheds and water bodies to which the project will drain, there is relatively little noted regarding the elevation of the Warwick Brook and Ramapo River as required by the scope. We ask that this elevation be included in the FEIS. Regarding the potential impact on the Weewa and Tuxedo Lakes, and given the nature of the hydrogeology of the watershed coupled with the varied runoffs this project will have, a study of groundwater is necessary to ensure that there is no impact on our reservoir, Tuxedo Lake. We've seen how complex the underground connections are from the mulch pile, for example, so much so that the village is having it studied by Rutgers hydrobiologists. On the issue of energy use, although there is discussion regarding mitigation of greenhouse gases as directed in the scope, other than the development and pursuit of mass transit options and a stated intent to explore financing a compressed natural gas facility in Orange County, there are little specifics regarding carbon emission mitigation measures. The DEIS failure to study fully the intersection of Route 17 and Tuxedo Road, the main entrance to the village, based upon a preliminary screening analysis, the traffic would decrease at that intersection is not satisfactory. The village requests that the intersection be fully studied as required by the DEIS. The scope required that the DEIS evaluate the impacts for the exchange 15B under both a toll and non-toll scenario. The DEIS simply assumes there will be no difference between the two because there is only an estimated 7-minute time savings in return for an assumed nominal toll. This conclusion is not based on any historical or other study. The village requests that there be a true evaluation of the toll, non-toll situation. The DEIS only provides a very limited Sunday traffic analysis, 3 to 4 p.m. The scope required that if a detailed Sunday traffic analysis were not performed, then there must be an adequate explanation. The explanation given is not adequate, and the village asks that a more complete analysis be provided. Although the pickup and drop-off method for transit riders is adequately set forth, the DEIS fails to identify the routes for the jitney and buses as required by the scope. The village asks that these routes be set forth as it may have a big impact on traffic in the area, depending on the routes chosen. Thank you.
And I'm the Director of Business Attraction for the Orange County Partnership. For those of you that don't know that, that is the county's Office of Economic Development. I will tell you that throughout this very interesting process of the whole casino movement here, we have really had to stay pretty impartial, and our stance has been to support a casino in Orange County. So we have chosen deliberately not to choose a favorite or pick one over the other. But what I will say here is I followed this project since the beginning. I've dealt with Genting and all the other folks that are involved in this. There are a number of assertions, I'll say, that this project makes that all I can say is are very difficult to argue, if not impossible to refute. So I just want to touch on a couple of those.
Point of order, are the representatives going to answer questions?
This is
or are they immune?
No, we need to be respectful during this process.
I'm very respectful. It's a point of order.
No, the point of order is comments only. It's
If the representatives of ours are answering questions also, or are they immune like the Genting gentleman?
No, this is a public hearing. The purpose is to gather information from the public. We're going to be taking your comments related to both the DEIS and the special permit. They're both related. And we're going to use those comments to complete the environmental review process and to consider in terms of going forward with the application.
So that's no to this gentleman answering questions?
So there are no questions
Thank you,
to
sir.
be answered
That's what I
tonight.
need. Thank you.
Okay.
How will you notify the public of what you found?
As part of the process will be going forward, later will be issued a final environmental impact statement after all the comments have been received, they've been analyzed, and they've been put together. And that's part of the ongoing environmental review process. After that occurs, there's also, before any agency, town or state agency makes any decision, they have to make findings based on that environmental. So there'll be times and places where you'll be able to get that information. Hopefully, some of the kind of questions you have, I understand that you will have some, will be answered in the process. But tonight is to gather that information so that the process can move forward. Thank you.
Sure.
Please.
Thanks. So as I was saying, we're in a position where we can't do a favor or say this is better than the other, but again, there are a number of assertions or qualities of this particular proposal that I or anyone I think can really refute. Number one, this is a project that can create the most jobs and deliver the most revenue than any other proposal. And that's what it's all about. This is an upstate economic development initiative, right? The legislation, everything behind it. It's difficult, again, or impossible to refute that this will deliver the most dollars and the most jobs for Tuxedo, for Orange County, and for New York State. And in Orange County, we thought we were in great shape, and then a year ago, we see exactly what kind of scenario we have with a $60 million plus deficit that we're facing, and we don't have an answer for it. And a project like this certainly can only help and help significantly. So that's number one, again, jobs. That's what it's all about. That's what my job is all about, is creating jobs locally here in the county and municipalities like this. And you cannot refute that this will generate the most construction and permanent jobs. So that's an important factor. Another thing is differentiation. Something I've learned through this process. We all know we're all here for Orange County, and certainly that's my job. I'm a cheerleader for Orange County and for growth here. But many of us care about our neighbors in Sullivan and Ulster County. This is a proposal, again, you can't refute that this will do the best job of not cannibalizing customers for a casino that may land in Ulster or Sullivan, because they've done the best job of differentiating themselves. That they're going after a high-end clientele, which will also maximize revenue, but it will not preclude customers from going to some of these other casinos in the area.
I'm sorry.
All right, trying to let everybody have their say tonight.
Yeah, but he's not addressing either of them.
I only have a couple other points.
Okay, please proceed.
Absolutely. I also think it's difficult to refute that this is the greatest utilization of the resources that are here, of the site, of the beauty of that site, looking to capitalize on that. Also looking to preserve.
Oh, yeah.
And I understand how passionate people are about Sterling Forest. They certainly get that. I think they're looking to utilize that, all the other amenities that are here, the ski resort.
We're supposed to speak to the DEIS document.
Thank you. Yeah.
I have to speak to the environmental use, the economic impact.
Let's try to let everybody have their say tonight, folks, whether you agree with it or not.
The impact on the infrastructure, this is one of the best potential impacts that can actually improve the infrastructure with 15B. That's important. And the last thing I'll say that they are all, Genting is also committed to being good citizens. You're seeing that already with the way they've helped the school budget. And I do know, I'm closely connected to the Community Foundation of Orange County. I'm not sure if you're aware of that. And they have an endowment fund already in place that's looking to help positively impact the greatest needs in Orange County, our youth education, health, things like that. So they're looking to be good citizens as well. So again, I can't choose them and say that it's the best project, but I can't refute just what this has to offer both this municipality and Orange County in general. So thanks so much for your time.
Okay, so we're going to move to the consultants phase of this hearing tonight. We're going to start with Bonnie Franson from H2M, that's the town's consultant. She'll tell you. Also, everyone, if you come up with a written statement, the town clerk would appreciate a copy of that, receiving a copy of that. I'll keep reminding everyone of that. After Bonnie, by the way, I have Eric Kiviat. Are you here, Bonnie? Okay, so you'll be able to come right up. And then Bob Keskis. Right? So Bob, if you want to come down here for me, and I'm just going to get one more, then we'll wrap it so we can keep this moving. Kathy, Ben, Catherine. That's you. Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
Sure, help you.
My name is Bonnie Franson, Franson. I'm with H2M Architects and Engineers.
H2M, together with its subconsultants, is conducting a detailed substantive review of the proposed Sterling Forest Resort draft environmental impact statement. The town board has asked us to enter into the record several important preliminary comments which will require additional detailed substantive response in the FEIS that we have had the opportunity to speak about with the town board. First, security and fiscal impact related to police and fire. A more detailed plan of the proposed security of the facility is necessary for the town board to understand the full impact on its police services and security in general. It must be made clear that extensive electronic surveillance and on-site security personnel must be available in the interior of the building, the parking garage, as well as the exterior 24 hours a day. We need to understand the number of staff dedicated to this assignment, coverage of the surveillance, coverage of surveillance equipment. Having state or local police, whichever is applicable, on site in a small station may greatly assist in security, and the town board would like that considered as part of the security plan. The issue of whether the state or the town has the primary jurisdiction for the project needs to be resolved so that a better assessment of the impact of the project on Tuxedo Police may be prepared, along with any proposed mitigation. With respect to the fire district, there's a deficit impact associated with the project, according to the DEIS. There needs to be more detail with respect to the proposed 4th brigade, where it will be stationed, and how it will serve to mitigate the fiscal impact on the fire district. There are additional concerns as well, including the methodology used to perform the fiscal analyses, which we believe may underestimate impacts. The above issues will be addressed further in a separate fiscal impact memo. In order to ensure that the site operates as one cohesive resort, if it's approved, the special use permit should contain a condition requiring that all lots be merged. In this way, any proposed plan to sell components of the overall resort would require subdivision approval and an evaluation of the effect of any such sale, if it would be allowed. With regard to lighting, photometric plans were submitted as part of the detailed site plan. The lighting plan, however, does not appear to take into consideration the cumulative light levels at the site when building lighting is taken into account. This evaluation must be expanded. Section 3.2 of the DEIS addresses geology. It provides a generic discussion of the potential for blasting to be required and a general protocol for how blasting would be conducted. All locations of the project where blasting is anticipated must be mapped and described with the specific evaluation of the proximity of dwellings and other existing structures to the mapped blasting locations. This is particularly important if there's to be any blasting at or near the water reclamation facility, which will be the closest structure to adjoining residents along local roads. Using this information, a site-specific blasting protocol must be developed for the FEIS. With regard to truck traffic, the Diamond Interchange recommended by the applicant for the proposed Interchange 15B along the New York State Thruway, as currently configured, will not be able to accommodate truck traffic. Thus, any increased traffic from truck deliveries will be accommodated on Route 17, County Route 72, County Route 84, and Route 17A. Specific truck routes and delivery pickup times, whether coming from the south or north, must be identified and fully analyzed for noise and traffic impacts. Also, we know that the Interchange 15B has been evaluating using a nominal toll fee. The extent to which any toll induces travelers to use 15A and continue to travel up Route 17 needs to be discussed in detail. Noise. Significant increases in noise will be experienced as a result of the project. Significant noise levels are generated by traffic traveling to and from the resort, which is going to be experienced at Laurel Ridge and Clinton Woods, snow guns at Helmstown Port, and construction at Benjamin Meadow and Helmstown Port. Noise levels will also increase within the adjoining parkland as well. At present, mitigation primarily focuses on establishing a fund of $25,000 per dwelling for 36 residences within Clinton Woods and Laurel Ridge. Our noise expert has advised that there are other locations within these two residential neighborhoods which are just shy of the 6 decibel increase that may also warrant mitigation. More comments regarding the adequacy of the mitigation will be made in our written comments. However, the applicant must also consider other types of mitigation which will better address noise impacts associated with the project. Lastly, we know that the town zoning law has performance standards for noise which do not appear to have been addressed in the DEIS. Compliance with the zoning noise standards needs to be demonstrated. With regard to construction hours of operation, related to truck traffic and noise levels, the applicant has indicated that it proposes to construct the facility between the hours of 8 a.m. and 8 p.m., Monday through Friday, and 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. on weekends and holidays. We expect that this is to meet the construction schedule dictated by the state should the applicant be designated a licensee under the state gaming law. As the noise and traffic associated with daily construction are a significant concern to the town board, there needs to be more detail provided as to how and when certain outdoor construction activities will occur, and how they can be timed in relation to indoor construction. As stated previously, it's important to understand the truck routes and times for delivery and pickup, and again, as well as outdoor construction. Parking needs to be addressed in greater detail. A particular concern is the availability of parking spaces near the World Fairgrounds. It's some distance to walk from the casino multi-story garage to that part of the site. We know individuals will want to park as close to the fairground site as possible. If a vehicle travels to this lot and is fully occupied, what design measures are in place for turnarounds? Ease of access between all parking lots needs to be addressed to minimize additional trips on Route 17A, especially given the taper down to 2 lanes in this area. A shuttle system for the parking garage needs to be considered. Traffic light, the DEIS indicates that a traffic signal at the intersection of State Route 17A and County Road 84 may be warranted as a result of the traffic increase. Given the proximity of the intersection to the Sterling Forest Fire Company and the need to be able to control that intersection in the event of an emergency, the town will ask the DOT, New York State, to determine whether a signal can be installed, which at a minimum could be actuated by the fire company on an as-needed basis. Cultural resources. 1 historic site and 2 archaeological sites have been identified within the areas to be disturbed. New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation will comment on those findings. Although the applicant has prepared a Phase 2 report, it has not yet been sent to the state agency for review. This needs to be done as soon as possible. The comment period must include opportunity for the state agency to offer its comments, which is required, a requirement of the DEIS. Endangered species, the Indiana bat, a New York and federally endangered species, was encountered on the project site based on acoustic surveys conducted in the vicinity of the casino and hotel site. We anticipate that the New York State DEC and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service will weigh in and comment on the significance of this finding. The Indiana bat population in the region has been in steep decline due to the high mortality rate associated with white nose syndrome. The need to protect this species and its effect on the site layout will be a determination made by those agencies. And then finally, the water reclamation facility. There's still a question as to how 100% of the reclaimed water will be used for the project and what will actually be allowed by the Orange County Department of Health and the DEC. Consultation with these agencies needs to occur so that the impacts to the Indian Kill Reservoir can be properly estimated with regard to future demand and impacts to water quality. Thank you for your attention to these preliminary comments presented on behalf of the town board. As mentioned above, further comments will be submitted by December 19, 2014. Thank you.
I'm Eric Hiviot from Hudsonia. We're a research institute. We're not advocates. We're simply here to analyze. And I gave her my card. Thank you. We're simply here to analyze. Okay, ERIK, KIVIAT. Thank you. We're here to analyze information with an emphasis on biological resources and present that information so that it can be considered during the planning process. I've been asked by the Sterling Forest Partnership to participate in the review of the DEIS. One point that I want to make loud and clear is that because the site was previously developed does not mean that it doesn't contain biological resources with conservation importance. It is sometimes made. The applicant's consultant is doing biological survey work, but there are many things that have not been considered or not been considered thoroughly. I'm just going to give a few examples, and I will submit a report with details and other information. There was a survey conducted for the timber rattlesnake. This is a threatened species in New York State. The species was not found on the site. A small timber rattlesnake population is easy to miss. This species is recovering from intensive exploitation over many decades. So it may be occupying habitat that has been unoccupied for a long time. Timber rattlesnake surveys should be repeated for at least 1, perhaps 2 more years. The northern cricket frog, an endangered species in New York State, was also surveyed for with negative results by the applicant. There is potential core habitat on the site in the 2 marshy ponds bracketing Route 17A. There is more core habitat just off-site in the reservoir and also northwest of the site, as far as I can determine from remote imagery. I believe that the cricket frog survey should also continue for another 1 or 2 years to ensure that there is a high probability of knowing whether the species is present or not. It happens to be a problem with looking for rare species that, because they are rare, they're often hard to find. This is why I'm recommending additional survey work for certain species. The golden winged warbler is a special concern species in New York. Perryman State Park and Sterling Forest support a relatively large breeding population, so this area is what we call a responsibility area for the conservation of the species. The DEIS reports that nesting golden winged warbler was found previously on the site during one of the New York State breeding bird atlas projects. The DEIS does not state where, and as far as I can tell, further survey work was either not conducted or not conducted adequately. There is a need for the conservation of this species to protect shrubby, wetland, and upland vegetation that's present on portions of the site. The whippoorwill and other special concern species in New York State was reported in the DEIS to have been heard singing at 4 locations, but there is no information as to the extent to which the species is using the site. Those 4 locations where singing was heard may represent a very small portion of the activity and habitat use of this bird or any other species. And in order to get the proposal, we need to know the overall habitat use of the species, home range, and so on. So those are 4 examples of wildlife issues. I don't see report of a comprehensive flora survey, botanical survey in the DEIS. This is needed for 2 reasons, both to detect rare native plant species for conservation purposes, and also to understand which non-native weeds with invasive potential are on the site. It's evident that Sterling Forest Gardens and perhaps other activities have introduced a number of non-native plants to the site. Some of them are spreading. I saw plants on the site which I have never seen elsewhere in eastern New York, and this is something that needs to be understood so that the applicant, if it gains approval, can implement an adequate and effective invasive species management plan that is suggested in the DEIS without any details. There are many other biological diversity concerns. One, for example, is that there appear to be some habitats that were completely overlooked. in the DEIS. One is a tail slope on the north central edge of the property. Another is an east-west gas pipeline corridor that crosses the southern portion, including the ski slopes that may contain habitat that doesn't exist elsewhere on the site. I want to mention a couple of other things very briefly. The descriptions of the ecosystem services provided by wetlands are not supported by evidence or literature references, so we don't really know what services occur or are supported by the site as opposed to by some generic wetlands somewhere else. Wetland mitigation is often unsuccessful. I mentioned a generic comment about wetland mitigation, which I've studied extensively. The proposed mitigation would likely result in unsustainable wetlands that are of low quality. There are many other details needed to allow the town to understand the impacts of this proposal and to plan its details appropriately. Thank you very much.
Bob Keskes.
Good evening, Bob Keskes, K-E-C-S-K-E-S. I'm a private environmental consultant in New Jersey. I have 40 years of experience, 35 years with the state of New Jersey Environmental Protection, 25 of those years in chief of the water supply planning section of the state of New Jersey. I've been retained by the partnership, the Sterling Forest Partnership, to evaluate the draft environmental impact statement. Comments I make tonight will be my own comments. Based on my review, I will respectfully urge the town board to reject the impact statement because it ignores 17 problems that would result in the casino will build. Let me start with the impacts that folks right here in Tuxedo will experience. First, casino relies on an estimate of water availability made 60 years ago. Water availability is actually a moving target. It depends on how much water you could continuously supply during a repeat of the drought record. This estimate was made in the 1950s.
Mike?
Welcome to the mic. Sorry. The estimate that the applicant is relying on was made 60 years ago. There's been a series of droughts, pretty severe droughts that could be drought records that have occurred since that estimate was made. So you really don't know how much water is available, and you really need to check that. And there's methods, there's accepted methods that the applicant could apply to come up with a reasonable estimate of water availability. The reason I raise that question is a lot of people, 1,000, I understand, that rely on that reservoir. Now, if you allow the applicant to use better than adequate capacity, and you don't know how much capacity really is, you could have a real problem in the future. So I think that's real key. Secondly, there was no assessment made of how the people that rely on water to your customers in Tuxedo will be impacted during the future drought. The Indian Hill Reservoir has a series of drop levels that are taken depending on how the water levels drop in the reservoir. You're going to be using a lot of water that hasn't been used yet. So your water levels are going to be declining much more than they are now. When they decline, you go into a drought warning. People have to start up back water use. You go into a drought emergency, phase 1. They have to stop watering their lawns. You go into a phase 2 emergency. Businesses that rely on a lot of water close down. You go into a phase 3 emergency. there's, you know, you're in no man's territory. That hasn't been evaluated. And I think rightfully, we need to let the folks know how they're going to be affected by this large use. Third, the impact statement seems to just brush off what the water quality impacts are going to be to the reservoir. If you saw the consultant's slide there, the road going right up to the casino is going to be used by 6 or 7 million people a year. There's going to be thousands of cars every day. There's going to be people parking in parking lots with leaky motors, transmission fluid leaks, antifreeze leaks. What the consultant is proposing is not going to do the job in preventing a lot of that material from getting into the reservoir or an accidental spill. The road is right next to the reservoir. You're going to have, you know, landscapers coming up there with, you know, pesticides and herbicides. So that hasn't been addressed. And the consultant also pointed out that most of the irrigation water is going to go back to the lake. Well, the irrigation water is going to go back to the lake. The pesticides, the herbicides, the fertilizers that they put on the grass, that's going to get water going down into the lake. It needs to be addressed. Fourth, the casino will use large amounts of water, but not return it to the watershed. That means that there's going to be less fresh water in the Engine Hill Creek and less fresh water going down the Ramapo River. Right now, there's a lot of water that's been reduced by all the wells along the river already. A lot of the river becomes wastewater during the summertime. So now you're getting more fresh water out of the system. Downstream, you have a well field that provides Whatcom County with 1/3 or better of its water supply. That well field has to stop pumping when a certain low flow is hit. By reducing the amount of water coming down to that well field, you're going to prematurely water the flow. Same effects are going to be occurring down at the pump station in New Jersey, where the West Jersey District and United Water New Jersey pumps water from the Ramapo River. Hasn't been discussed. That's going to be that pump station is going to have to shut down prematurely. Last, there's really not been any impact analysis of the cumulative effects of everything that's being proposed.
Mike, please. Can't hear you.
Okay. But the Ramapo Reserve hasn't been included in this analysis. That's almost a sure bet. Caesars upstream here hasn't been included. There's no evaluation of the cumulative effects of these projects. You're only looking at this one site-specific project. Based on that and a number of other comments, I'm going to make a more comprehensive analysis. I would really urge the board to tell the applicant that there's a whole bunch of more things that need to be addressed before you can proceed. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Kathy, then Catherine? Sure. Okay.
Good evening. My name is Catherine Weinkaufner. I'm a consulting hydrogeologist. My firm is Mid-Hudson Geosciences, and I'm located in Clintondale, New York. Weinkaufner is spelled Beinkafner. The first name is Catherine, starts with A. The transcription person has my card. First, I'd like to discuss a little bit about the geotechnical report and how it relates to the geologic conditions at the site. And then the second half of my other 3 minutes, I would like to devote to talking about mitigation and the water supply situation. The DEIS is one of the worst work products I have ever reviewed. If I were Mr. Genting, I would not want to pay many of the consultants. I'll be talking about the geotechnical report and how it relates to the site plan. The section on geology, soils, and topography was a fine example of what not to do. Tremendous amounts of words, sentences, paragraphs, and pages were wasted. The descriptions of numbers that could be placed in a table with one short sentence just explaining the conclusion one would make from that table. You don't have to tell me in this column there's a number that's this and so forth. On and on and on. Don't send pages telling us how the project has changed. Tell us clearly what the project proposal is now. Don't invent technical words and phrases, such as unconsolidated rock or nicosity. Tell the reader what superficial geology covers. That would be the unconsolidated sedimentary deposits and debris on the surface of the land at the site. A landfill would be considered a superficial deposit. A sandy beach would be a superficial deposit. Any kind of soil is a superficial deposit. Don't talk about door fence. Just tell us that they are man-made deposits of fill. And then describe the kind of fill that is found on this site where the runway area was built in. The Orange County survey, soil survey, talks all about all the possibilities, but just tell us about the soil on this site. That's what we need to know about. Frankly, I don't think the author of this section would be able to distinguish the fill material from the underlying glacial deposits in the bottom of the valley. The geotechnical report is Appendix A. That geotechnical report, the very first illustration I have here, the blue circle is where the applicant shows the site project area to be. But the red circle actually shows where it really is, based on a map that they show after that figure 2. My good friend Yolanda is very good at this. She's our engineer. Let's see. This is the soil testing map. The most important thing you can see across it is kind of a, oh, hold it the other way here. It's in East-West Minute. Yeah. The red line across, the blue line, the black line across it is the Route 17A. And then there's little boxed in areas that are where they did soil testing of various kinds. And then you can see the runway valley. That's an absolutely critical part of this project because that's where the parking garage and the casino and the parking level is going to go. Now, what's really important is when you look at this, when you look at the report, it has this cross section in it. And the whole idea is that this will be a cross section across the valley. So you can see that there's soil in the bottom of the valley, and you can see there's glacial deposits underneath it, which seems like this has something to do with how we're going to build a casino, right? But when you look at the actual map and where these 3 borings are located, they're actually distributed, actually this one's better because it shows them in circles. You can see the borings, they're not in a straight line where they show section A to A, drawing. They're in those circles. So they actually have no data on the eastern side of the valley. So this looks like a great idea, but they're not really reporting the right information. The other thing that is shown on that are those 3 circles actually show where they're monitoring wells. There's a couplet of monitoring wells at the bottom circle, and those are 2 wells. One is screened in the deep interval, one is screened in the upper interval. And then based on the height of the water in those 2, you can determine if groundwater is flowing upward or downward. And in this case, groundwater does seem to be flowing upward. So the applicant makes the assumption that everywhere on site, we have groundwater flow coming to the surface. So that the streams, the wetlands, everything else would be having groundwater coming to the surface. I don't know if I would want to base my plans on one assumption like that. Okay. Do that again. Okay, I wanted to speak a little bit about the Runway Valley. It's going to have a hotel, the parking garage, and a flat landed parking area in it going from the south to the north. The elevation of the valley floor is important because it slopes from north to south. The applicant's proposing to construct the hotel 26 feet above the current ground surface in the valley. The parking garage is going to be 9 feet above the ground surface. How much fill will be required to raise the floor up to these levels to do this construction? There are no estimates of any amount of material to be brought into the site, material to be taken out of the site, how much blasting is going to go on. I wasn't even sure there was any part about blasting. I haven't seen it in there. Maybe I just got a card on. Let's see. What is the material at the ground surface? They have 5 borings that they're going to plan this huge hotel based on those. They don't know anything about the east side of the what goes on in the subsurface in the Slough Valley. Really, definitely lacking serious information. What depth of the formations, you need to know that, and how will the building be anchored in the unconsolidated fill materials. The plan is to drive wooden pilings into the ground and get them down deep enough so that you have sufficient stabilization so that the building won't tip over or sink deeper into the sediment. A cross-section of the length of the valley would really be explanatory, because then you could see what is the slope in the valley, how are the hotel and the garage and the parking area going to fit in there, and how much fill is going to be required, how much there's going to be a change relative to the underlying fill.
Excuse me, your time allowed, so I heard Shalanda has signed up as well, so.
Right.
Will you use your time now, Shalanda?
No, we're not using one. Let me say one more thing.
Please.
Are they trying to pull the wool over our eyes, or are they just incompetent? I don't know. But certainly, this area is very poorly covered. I agree with Bob about a lot of the problems with the water supply. The biggest problem is there is no estimate of how much sediment has gone into this reservoir over the last 60 years. So it's got to be filling up. There can't possibly be 600 million gallons a day available. So this is a really serious problem. You can't base this on data that's 60 years old. That's all I have to say today.
Steve Brooks. I offered to lend her time and she declined. So you will take it. And I offered you time. Please go ahead.
Good evening. I looked at, name. Yolanda Johnson, Jolanda, Johnson, Jansen. I have an accent, I'm a Dutch person, but I'm legal now. I noticed that the DEIS and the drawings have lots and lots of maps. Most of them detail in and don't show you the context and what's going on. In one of the reports, which was the floodplain report, there was this beautiful map at the end that shows both the aerial photography, the some lines for existing flooding, but also a lot of the proposed contours for the proposed construction. I've reproduced that map and brought it up here, and you can all look at it at some point. And I've made smaller copies for the town board. who probably also haven't had a chance to see everything in context. And most of us can read aerial photographs better than we can read contour maps because we visited the site. I've been to the Renaissance Fair multiple times, and it helps me grasp what is going on. I was retained by the Sterling Forest Partnership and limit my review to two of the appendices. I reviewed the stormwater report and I reviewed the floodplain analysis. I don't like it when engineers play cheap tricks with the numbers. It's ridiculous to say that the increase in impervious area is insignificant because I decided to divide it by the entire 270 acres of the parcel and come up with 1.53%. When you look at the casino site alone, the increase in impervious area from 12.89 acres to 19.95 acres is an increase of 55%. So don't blow smoke and say 1.53. It's not fair, and professionals shouldn't play those kind of games. The stormwater report, technically, in terms of running the numbers, is probably okay. It's poorly written so that even someone like me trying to read how the pieces of information connect to each other, I had great difficulty. They divided the site up into two sections. I think what happened was they did it for the casino first, and then somebody said, oh, we need to do it for the whole site, and then they wrote that separately. And when you try to follow how many total acres of impervious areas there are, I'm not sure if I've figured it out correctly. I want to quote something from the DEC, because what has happened is they are meeting the technical minimum requirements for stormwater. However, according to the New York State Stormwater Management Design Manual, redevelopment provides an opportunity to correct existing problems and reduce pollutant discharges from older developed areas that were constructed without stormwater pollution controls. So a site like this needs creative application of the stormwater regs, not bare minimum and see what we can get away with because we provided some jobs application of the stormwater regs. And my looking at this site, the entrance to the casino over the stream that has wetlands on both sides completely destroys the hydrology of that area. Those roads are sitting up on walls that are 13 to 15 feet high. It's an amazing, ugly way of grading an existing landscape. There is a section of the stream slightly to the left of the valley where it's narrow, it goes up steeply. You can cross there and not impact all those wetlands and low-lying areas. What they're doing right now is completely changing that segment of the valley. They're like, okay, we're not impacting the wetland because we're not going into it, but you're impacting it by depriving it of all the water that currently keeps it wet. When you finish construction, it won't be wet, it won't be a wetland, and it would have been done by the decisions for how to build this project. The stormwater systems for all the parking lots and all the other stuff over here is a little bit more cutting edge, a little bit more infiltration, a little bit more pervious pavers. They didn't use any infiltration of police pavers in the casino project. It's almost like it was designed by a different person. But the really important thing for this area is, in the past, everybody would build right up to the edge of the wetland, right up to the edge of the pond. Modern standards provide a buffer. Remove some pavement, give it 25 feet or some consistent amount so you have vegetation and you have wildlife. That is the standard that we should ask them to design this project to. Am I about to run out of time? The one thing I wanted to say about the floodplain report is that the model that they use, the mathematical model, isn't designed to analyze the impact of losing the entire airstrip as storage during a 100-year storm. So they did an analysis, it served their purpose, but it doesn't tell us what the impact of this construction on the stream really is. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Steve Gross, Principal of Hudson Highlands Environmental Consulting. I'm here on behalf of the New York, New Jersey Trail Conference. And, I think you know how to spell my name, but if not, it's Gross, as in disgusting. G-R-O-S-S. And I just want to say to Kathy before me that I'll have to disagree. This is not the worst environmental impact statement I've ever read, only because I've actually seen worse, but that's the only reason why. I've done major criticisms as well. And what I decided to do with my time is to come at it from a different perspective. I look at an entire environmental impact statement, so it's very hard for me to cover everything in 6 minutes. But I'll begin by telling you something about my background. I've been working in the field of land planning and environmental impact assessment for approximately 35 years. For much of that time, I've worked for other larger consulting firms preparing dozens of environmental impact statements for land development projects. And preparing these statements, it was made clear to me and my fellow coworkers that we were supposed to help our developer clients and basically make things sound as good as we could in order to make our client's project, get our client's project approved. Even if that meant leaving certain things out of the DEIS or massaging the language. I work for myself now because I found that work model to be unethical. But I certainly received an education that enabled me to read through the facade of the DEIS that is often a sales document in disguise. I'd like to spend my time now demystifying and interpreting just a few examples, certain portions of the DEIS that is now before you. So I thought I'd choose the wetland mitigation as an example. Given that the project's location completely surrounded by a state park that was preserved largely for its value as a watershed and high value ecological habitat, one of the critical areas to be examined is the impact upon wetlands. The DEIS identifies 3.05 acres of wetland impact for which it purports to provide 6.78 acres of in-kind mitigation. So let's take a closer look. The DEIS identifies permanent filling of 0.41 acre of emergent wetland, arguably the most valuable wetland type on the project site. This is the type of wetland that's inundated, typically seasonally at a shallow depth that permits the growth of non-woody wetland vegetation breaking the surface of the water. Proper mitigation for this impact would be in-kind replacement by double that, 0.82 acre of the same wetland type. Now, looking at the wetland mitigation plan, there's only one area that I saw where they were creating emergent wetland, and that was called Area 3, which you can see on either side of the entrance road here. That's the only place was noting we were supposed to have almost an acre of emergent vegetation, and that's 1.88 acres. But when you look at the project plans, you see that area, the same exact area, is listed as being proposed lakes. And in fact, from the renderings, and I can only find one rendering that's showing one of those in this little corner here in the DEIS, it is indeed a lake, not emergent wetland. And in fact, what we're talking about is entranceway, ornamental landscape, water features on either side.
That is not wetland mitigation, that's landscaping. Now that's 1.8 acres of their 6.78 right there. And of course they called it, they gave it a very fancy name, it's Palustrine Open Water / Palustrine Emergent Wetland. They're puns. Now, no emergent vegetation is indicated on the plans at all, either in the project plans or the renderings. If any emergent wetland plants were intended in this area, the DEIS list proposed landscape plans includes just 5 emergent species, which includes Siberian iris, clearly not native, a giant form of water lily that is native to the Amazon, and bald cypress, also obviously not native to northern climates like New York. None of these are acceptable choices for wetland mitigation in New York State. In fact, the Siberian iris is considered an invasive species that can be harmful to native wetlands if it escapes downstream to wetlands within the state park. Similarly, the DEIS also takes credit for an additional 3/4 of an acre of wetland enhancement, which is shown here in the middle of an existing wetland. The springs are right smack in the middle. But when you then look at the rendering of that wetland, it's an open pond again. Now, normally wetland enhancement might be removing or Phalustrite phragmites, replacing with native vegetation. Apparently, Genting's idea of enhancement is to dredge it and make it into a landscape feature once again. You may also notice in the upper corner here, there's a drainage way coming in. That is part of their 1.04 acres of wetland mitigation that they have given a fancy designation as well. Just looking in my notes where that is. Yes, that's R4SB/R3UB, otherwise known as riverine, stream bottom or riverine unconsolidated bottom, but basically it's constructed man-made water drainage way to replace the one that they're moving over. The other major category of wetland mitigation is the restoration of 2.82 acres of enhancement of another, restoration of 2.8 acres and enhancement of another 0.28 acres of palustrine forested broadleaf wetland, or more simply put, tree planting. Here I'm confused by the use of the term restoration because the amount of forested wetland impact amounts to a total of 0.31 acre, so I'm not sure where the other 2.5 acres of restoration comes from. But again, looking at the renderings provided by Genting, these plantings are indicated here. It's ornamental tree planting. How much time do I have left?
Pretty much 15 seconds.
Oh my God, there's a whole other issue I need to get to. Can I skip ahead? Sure. Okay. Completely different, more serious example of misrepresentation is in section 2.1.4.3, development restrictions. You are going to want to hear this one. So here, the DEIS makes reference to a pair of documents that places development restrictions on the project site. A declaration of restrictions dated February 5th, 1998, and the Fair Partners Allocation Agreement dated April 2nd, 2002. The DEIS commercial development on the 2,200 acres of land owned at that time by the Sterling Forest Improvements, by Sterling Forest Corporation. It further correctly states that the master cap includes such municipality required improvements such as utilities, as well as schools, roadways, and other uses not mentioned in DEIS, but is incorrect in stating that the private parking garage proposed for the hotel and casino use would also be excluded from this cap. But on that point, and he knew that. How do I know? Because a few paragraphs later, they covered themselves by stating, in the event that a parking garage on an alternative site in the event it's not feasible to build a parking garage on the project site, applicant plans to locate the parking garage on an alternative site, such as the Red Apple Rest site. In other words, they figured they tried to slip the parking garage in as an exempt municipal improvement, but figuring it may not work, they made sure to have a backup. But that's a minor point compared to the misrepresentation of the Fair Partners Allocation Agreement. As stated in the DEIS, this agreement memorializes the transfer of 900,000 square feet of the 2.8 million square feet of commercial development at King's College. But what they leave out, blatantly leave out, and gentlemen, you need to hear this one, is that this allocation agreement provides only 140,000 square feet of new commercial development to the Fair Partners property. It is deed restricted. The remainder of that, at that time, 1,760,000 square feet was specifically reserved for their remaining properties that were not part of the King's College premises or the Fair Partners premises. So in the very language of the allocation agreement, it specifically stated that none of the remaining 1.76 million square feet of allowed commercial development could be applied to the Fair Partners property. Subsequent to that agreement, approximately 150,000 square feet was developed on minor properties, and the remainder ran with the undeveloped holdings. Those holdings were eventually transferred to Palisades Interstate Park Commission, and with the land, they also required the remaining 1.6 million square feet of commercial development. PIPC is also the beneficiary of the deed restriction. Will you wrap it up, please? This is very important. That much. You need a lot of time, so please go ahead. PIPC is also the beneficiary of the deed restriction, which organized the speech, which imposed the master cap and has the right of enforcement. In a letter to the Gaming Commission dated September 18, 2014, James Hall, the Executive Director of PIPC, asserts their rights in this regard, as well as the Commission's intent to enforce them. Interestingly, that particular piece of correspondence from PIPC appears in Appendix Q of the DEIS as a blank page reading redacted. The bottom line, gentlemen, is that the project site is encumbered by a deed restriction that limits new construction to just 140,000 square feet. The Sterling Forest Resort proposed before you simply cannot legally be built.
The town clerk needs them to, Steve. The town clerk. And just like to remind everybody too, obviously, the opportunity to give written submissions that are equally as weighted as your verbal testimony. At this point in time, though, we're going to take a 5-minute break. We're going to organize the list. We have about 70 citizens who want to speak tonight at 3 minutes apiece. That's 210 minutes or 3.5 hours. So.
Yeah, another meeting. That was promised at the last